Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I'm Tyler, and today, oh boy, we got one today, okay. Book 11. One more book left after this. This is Lord of the Shadows, obviously. Very confused. I thought it was Lord of the Shadow. Didn't make any sense to me. And then I realized it's plural, so there's that. Uh, what an insane ending. Okay, we're just gonna get into it because, like, we read a lot of books here, okay, not only in this series, but also in general, right? This is I think, our like fifth series that we've done so far. A lot of crazy stuff, right? Like every series has moments that are insane, plot twists, all that good stuff. I have never, at the very least, and I was trying to think about it afterwards, maybe any book I've read I don't think I've ever wanted someone to die more than Steve Leonard. Um, there have been other books, right? Like, I don't want to spoil anything. Even other books that we've done so far, because maybe listening to this, maybe haven't, or read along with other series I've done. But um, if you have, there have been other characters in other books that are like, man, this person sucks and they should die. Usually at least one per series, just because there's antagonists and all that stuff. I don't think any of them best Steve, because I feel like everything he does, it just gets worse and worse, right? Like him, his delusion. I think I mentioned this last time. His delusion when it comes to his life, just like them starting out and like him thinking that Darren plotted with Krebsley to get back at him. And it's like, Darren, you're the one who introduced this idea, like even if afterwards it was like, oh, he's evil, and Darren comes to him and they're like, oh, we're gonna plot this thing, you're gonna blood me instead of evil Steve. It's like, doesn't make any sense. And then him, like, I don't know, man, trying to take Debbie, killing Krebsley, pretending to be his friend. Now the Tommy situation, him having Tommy killed, like, and we're just getting to the end now, and it's like it just gets worse and worse and worse, and he believes in himself. Like that's also another thing that puts it over the top. Is like other characters, you can say, learn from their mistakes and understand that maybe they went the wrong path, even if they start. I mean, we even have Kurta, right? Like Kurta maybe is like, maybe could have done this differently, but he truly believes in everything he was doing, and at its essence, he was trying to help the clan, right? Um, there was a character, I won't name them, but there was a person in the Percy Jackson series who was bad, and you kind of understood the reason why they were bad. Again, if you've read it, you know who I'm talking about. It's like, maybe you would have wanted them to go take a different path or take some different steps or whatever, but you do understand why they did what they did. Steve, we just have the 1-2 punch of Steve killing Shankus, right? Ending Shankus's life, just a boy. Has nothing to do with anything, is not involved in this prophecy. It, just a boy. Just living his life, wanting to grow up, be a cool snake boy just like his dad. That's all. You even saw the shock in RV and Ganon's expressions where they were just like, what did he just do? We did not expect him to actually kill. Like, that wasn't part of it. Even Vancha on the side trying to talk to Ganon and be like, do you want this? And Ganon's just like, it's not for me to say. Like, he does not approve of everything Steve does. But he's the Vampanese Lord, so what are you gonna do? So him killing Shankus is insane. Like, absolutely evil behavior. But the very, very end, And this is funny because as I was reading it, I kind of guessed this. I have guessed it, but also probably just memories of the book coming to the forefront. Him killing Shankus, Darren waging a war internally and deciding, I have to kill Darius now. I really don't want to, but I have to. And I shouldn't, but I have to. And then Steve being like, wait, hold on. Hey, Darius, what's your mom's name? Annie Shan. So what does this mean? What does this mean? It means that Steve, at some point, got into a relationship with Annie, who is Darren's sister, had a relationship, had a good enough relationship to have a child with her, left her, and is now parading around the sun. Like, in just real life, might be kind of an awkward situation, right? Like, your best friend dies and you get with their sister. It's like, that might be kind of strange, especially if there was no preamble to the relationship. Maybe, you could say you bonded over that. It's kind of a weird thing to say you bonded over someone's death, your friend's slash brother's death. But, world is crazy. Things happen. Emotions fly every which way. Not the first time this would have ever happened, right? But that's not what happened. And again, it ends right there, so I'm sure the next book, which is the final book, I'm sure will open up and maybe there'll be some sort of taunting and we'll get a little bit more information as to what happened, how this came about. But the situation. That night, we saw it, right? Like Darren getting dug back up after he faked his death. Steve, committing to the revenge story. I'm not saying right then and there he was like, I'm gonna I'm gonna sleep with a sister and have a kid. But that's why he did. He didn't love Annie. He got like he's out here playing 4D chess, the most diabolical version of 4D chess there is. Had a kid, raised the kid to hate vampires, hate Darren for sure, not know anything about the mother. I guarantee it. I guarantee Annie hasn't seen or talked to Steve in forever. Not not for this moment specifically, but for this moment. For this moment to be like, oh yeah, my son is your nephew. What an insane, like, I just need to sit back for a second because what an insane thing to do. Like, he is diabolical. He is the worst person, I think. Like, again, I have never wanted someone to die more than this man. More than this man. Like, again, it's the delusion that I think puts him over the top for me. Like, he is such a maniac. He's such a psycho that he thinks everything he's doing is right. Even if he recognizes his own evilness, his own darkness, he still thinks that everything he does is correct. And it is all for, like the ends justify the means or whatever. He believes it. Like, him bringing Annie into this is insane. A child that he doesn't care about. He doesn't care about Darius. He didn't not want Darren to kill Darius because he loves his son. He didn't want him to kill him before he got to reveal. If Darren kills his son right here and now, he will feel nothing. In fact, he'll be ecstatic because it's just another step closer to Darren. It's just proving his own viewpoint of Darren, of being evil and dark and being kind of like him. The whole prophecy with the Lord of Shadows, it could be either one of them. It's like Steve wants this. Steve wants any excuse to show Darren, to show the world that Darren is evil. And because again, it all goes back to his, I don't know, his like reason for living is that Darren betrayed him, his best friend. He betrayed him and sided with Krebsley. It's so that like blew me away when I read it because I'm just like, would it? Again, like diabolical, I think is the best word I can use. Like I just can't. I mean, I can believe it, but I can't believe that a character would do everything leading up to this and then this. Because now, well, I mean, now we're getting into predictions, but just, just like a little taste of predictions. I don't think Darren can kill him. He can't. Partly because he's his nephew, but even more so, that's Annie's child, and I don't think he would do it. I think there is a sliver of a sliver of a sliver of him that would do it, even if it was related to him somehow. But I think it being related to Annie and being Annie's child, not a chance. Not a chance. So, he is such a frustrating character to read, and like Darren Shan, the author, did a fantastic job of just making him just the most scum we have ever seen in literature, Um, Something added to that, Steve has also blooded Darius, which just adds a whole new element to it now that we know that he is Darren's nephew. It's like he is slightly Vampanese, and he is a child. Like, I feel like, is he, how old is Darius? I just feel like I mean, he can't be older than how old Darren was when he was blooded. I feel like he's a little younger, but I could be wrong in that. Blooding a child is just like, Krebsley did it and he shouldn't have. And now you're blooding your own, like, it's just such a bad move, you know? You just really shouldn't. Because now he has to deal with that. And again, he's been raised on lies. Like, calling the vampires the killers is like, what? Vampanese literally kill when they feed. Vampires don't. That is in their nature. That is what they do. That is the big thing. One of the big things that caused Vampanese to split off from the vampires. What? It's such a frustrating character. Like, I don't remember exactly. Like, there are some parts of the ending to the next and final book that I remember very vividly. I don't remember what exactly happens to Steve. We'll get into that at the end when we do predictions, but I'm just like, I really hope he dies. Like, with all my heart. Yeah, what else do we have? I guess touching on Annie real quick. That was a really nice scene. I really enjoyed the part when Darren went to Annie's place, and I like his final decision to not confront her. Confront sounds aggressive. His decision to not approach her and reunion with her. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Reunite, that's the word. To reunite with her, because I just don't think anything good would have come of that. I think that his own reasoning is exactly what I was thinking, where it's like, I think Hardcat is right. I think it was Hardcat. My belief is that I think that in the end, Annie would have been happy. I think it would have been very, very confusing. Oh no, Tommy might have been the one who said it. I think it would have been very, very confusing. I think it would have brought up a lot of old, very painful memories. But I think once that was sort of, once you sort of got through that, I think Annie would have been ecstatic to be like, yo, my brother's alive. Like, oh my God, like, this is incredible. He's alive. Like, I can talk to him. We can laugh. We can cry with each other. Like, we can be in each other's lives. Like, this is, But I do ultimately think what Darren did, I mean, especially the situation, like, if somehow, again, I don't remember exactly the ending to this story, but let's say there's a scenario in which Darren wins, he somehow avoids becoming the Lord of the Shadows, avoids the terrible future that Des Tiny showed them, and they're all able to live happy, peaceful lives after this. Again, Darren is still Vampire Prince, so there's all that, but all in all, he's able to kind of move on from the War of Scars and live a somewhat peaceful life, especially compared to what it is now. It would be nice for them to have somewhat of a relationship and, and be able to see his son, not his son, I don't know why I said that, her son, the one that we don't know the name of, and also Darius is there as well. Again, assuming that, again, in this made up future that I'm crafting, you know, it would be nice to have that sort of relationship. Maybe go and see the parents as well. Because I think they're both still alive. I know that they said the dad had a heart attack. I don't know if the dad died though. I don't know. Well, that could be a thing. Although I understand Darren not wanting to do it because, like I said, the situation doesn't help. But even in general, it's like, how selfish would that be? Like, she has her own life. It's been like 20 years, so she's grieved, right? Like, I'm sure you're still in her mind. I'm sure, it's your brother that I'm sure you never forgot, you know. But like I said, she's grieved. She has her own life. She has a kid. She has a job, friends, family, whatever. Like, how selfish of that? How selfish would that be of you to bring yourself into her life at this moment? Like I said, at the end of the day, I think it would be good. I think it would be happy. I think, you would, as the sister, I think you would want to have your brother in your life, no matter how, momentarily very emotional and somewhat devastating it would be to have him brought back. But it is somewhat selfish because she has no idea that you're alive, so she doesn't even know the possibility of you coming back is in play, whereas you do because you know you're alive, and so you're the one that would be making the call because, again, the fact that a reunion is possible is only something that you know of. She does not. So that would be somewhat, possibly very selfish of you to do. And ultimately, with the War of Scars going on, with everything going on, I just don't think this is the right time. Him to be like, hey, I'm alive. Here's everything I've done. I've been doing. Let's cry and grieve and all that stuff. In the initial conversation that would happen, and I'm sort of in a war, and because even that, it's like, you may die, I may die. So it's like, what would be the point of it? Like I said, if there's a future where we move past this, Darren somehow avoids his very dark fate, I think that he definitely should go to her and be like, hey, I'm Darren. And there should be something like that. But overall, I did really like that scene. Just to see her alive, because her, I didn't assume she was dead, but just to see her and she's here, because the small part in book one that we did get of her, it was nice. It wasn't like an estranged relationship. Like they were both very, very young, but it was like, oh, it was nice, and like, I feel like when he was having to fake his death, Annie was the one that hurt him the most because he was like, oh, I have to do this to Annie. Like, this is going to ruin her. So I like that she seems to, at least on the outside, she seems to be doing well. Just a couple more things. Let's go with this one first. Then we'll do the other one. Morgan shot and killed Mr.Tall. This is huge, of course, for a few reasons. Possibly didn't even know that Mr.Tall could die. Even Steve said it, right? Where it's like, didn't know Mr.Tall could die from regular means. You telling me I could have just shot him this whole time? I should have done that years ago. But that's huge. Also, there was sort of the confirmation that he was the brother, the long lost brother, which is, again, something that I'm sure part of me was just remembering in the deep memories of my mind, but it also makes sense, right? Like for Darren to be like, I never put that together. It's like, really? There's only three people in this world that can like read the future. One of them is Mr. Tiny, and we know Mr. Tiny had a son and a daughter. The daughter is Ivana, and so you never thought for a second that maybe Mr. Tall could be the brother? Not even for a second? Weird. Um, but yeah, so there's that. Um, and yeah, Mr. Tall just being gone sucks. Like Mr. Tall was always a really cool character. We didn't see too much of him here and there, but you could tell that he cared. Even his confession that he mourned Crepsley for like 30 years because he knew that there was a possibility that Crepsley was going to die, and that was a dear friend of his. Um, but that's like, man, and even the information he gave up, like Ivana was upset, but you could tell that that's because he loved them. Like he really cared for his Cirque people, and vampires as well. Darren, right? Darren's definitely high on that list, I'm sure. And so that's why he gave up that level of information. Um, yeah. And also just taking Mr. Tall, like specifically out of it, Mr. Tall as like an idea for him to die. It's like, man, we're at the end. Like major players are ceasing to exist. So uh and lastly, last thing I have here, Darren wanted to kill Darius, right? Before Shankiss died, he wanted to do it in the woods when they were chasing Morgan and all that, right? Now that's huge because that sort of connects to the destiny of the Lord of the Shadows. Darren even felt it himself, where he was like, "This is a Darren Shan that I did not know existed." And it's like, man, he would kill a child. That's crazy. It's like, again, you understand the reasoning why he wanted to do it. Just everything is hitting him, right? Like even the way Debbie and Hardcat looked at him, it's like, oof. Like you are getting a little bit of the Lord of the Shadows in you. I mean, they didn't, they don't know that that's a possibility, but that is what they're seeing, even though they don't know that's what they're seeing. And um, so yeah, like just the fact that he can do something like that, he can think something like that. Again, we're drawing parallels to Steve, where it's like, man, I don't think Darren is inherently evil like Steve is, but you can tell that Darren can get there. Even Ivana was like, it's already building inside. Like hatred has already worked its way inside of you, and killing Steve will be the final thing that your mind and your body needs to just open the floodgates. Um, I feel like now we are transitioning to predictions because Lord of the Shadows is a big thing, right? That's the name of this book. We have the next and final book, Sons of Destiny, which we're going to read next week and finish up the series. I think that him becoming the Lord of Shadows is interesting because we have, what do we think is going to happen, right? One of two possibilities, as everyone has told us. All three family members who can see the future have said this. It's just so tough because you kind of don't want either future, because it's like, well, one looks a lot nicer in the beginning, at least, right? Where the vampires win, they're saved, everyone's alive, right? But in that future, Darren becomes Lord of Shadows, ends up killing everybody. Is the alternative better, where Steve wins and he kills it? Because at least in that future, everyone still dies, but it's by someone who's evil, so it's like, it makes sense. Instead of being, somewhat betrayed by Darren, who you think would be the savior. Um, we had Darren try to refute it and be like, well, it's not going to happen. I'm going to kill Steve, and then I'm going to, maybe after I kill Steve, that's when I'll go into hiding. That's when I'll, dig a hole in the ground and live there. I am very interested to see what happens because, like I said, I do vividly remember parts of the ending. I will say the parts that I remember are not whether Darren or Steve wins. Like I honestly don't remember which one wins. Um, which sounds weird because it's like, oh well, then what do you remember? It's like I don't know. I remember weird moments of the ending that aren't necessarily indicative of which side wins. I just remember like other stuff, but I'm not gonna say it obviously because it's still spoilers, right? But yeah, I truly don't remember like who wins because it's like this prophecy is so weird because it's not, well, it's either Darren kills Steve or Steve kills Darren. It's like, well, no, because it's really all indicative of if Steve dies or not. Like if Steve survives the last encounter, Vampanies win. And Steve doesn't even have to kill Darren because we know that one of them's going to survive, right? Well, based on the prophecy. So Vancha could be the one who dies, right? Which would make sense because they were saying that Vancha is going to die at the hand of the Lord of Shadows either way. Um, so it's like, I really don't know. I mean, I would like to say Darren kills Steve just because there's that classic, you know, it is the story. It's the storybook ending where the good guy wins, right? Even if the good guy turns out to be the bad guy. Um, but even, let's say Darren kills Steve, right? Say Darren finally gets it, whatever, right? What happens after that? It's like, is Darius still alive, right? I mean, we're going to that too. Like, do we think Darren is going to be able to kill Darius? Like I kind of said earlier, I don't think so. I think that he 100% was about to do it. And I still think there is a like fraction of a percent of him that would do it if it turned out that somehow it was just Darren's kid. Like Darren had I don't know when this would have happened, but in some alternate reality, Darren slept with someone and they have a kid and Steve found the kid or whatever and some, DNA test or something and proved that it was Darren's kid and, now has him and raised him as his own or whatever. I still think there's a fraction of a percent of him that would still kill him and be like, but he's blooded and he's the whatever, right? But the fact that it's Annie's child, not a chance. Not a chance. Will he kill Darius now? Also, love that. Oh, I hate it though. I hate it because okay, part of me was gonna say back when Darren looked at Annie before, we never learned Annie's kid's name, right? And in my head, I was like, I bet you. I mean, kind of before this happened a little bit, maybe. I was like, I was thinking in my head of like, oh, I bet you that Annie named her kid after Darren, right? Maybe just named him Darren or something similar. I don't know. We never learned that kid's name. We now know there's this kid named Darius, and part of me is like, oh, I love that Annie did name the kid after Darius, right? I'm also assuming Darius is older than the other kid we saw. But I hate it because part of me is like, there is a chance that Steve is the one. Like when the naming conversation happened, that Steve was like, why don't we name it after your brother? Why don't we name it after Darren? And I hate that so much more. If it was Annie's choice, I love it. If Steve is the one that planted the idea of naming their son after Darren, I hate it. I hate it so much because there's just so much about him that I hate to my core. He would do something like that because this was all planned. It was planned. He he had the idea. Like I don't know when, I don't know how soon. He had the idea of like I'm gonna get into a relationship with Annie, and she's gonna love me, and I'm gonna have a kid with her, and then I'm gonna leave her, take my son, and I'm gonna use my son, her son, against Darren somehow. This was all in his head. I hate it so much. I really hope he dies again. I don't remember if he dies or not. I mean, I guess. Oh no, I guess he doesn't have to, right? Because if he wins, so yeah, okay. I really hope he dies. Like I really hope he does. More so than any other fictional character I think I've ever read before. Um, but yeah, I don't know that I have anything else. Like I said, next book is the last book, Sons of Destiny. Go ahead and read that. We'll finally finish up this series. It's gonna be a good time. I'm sure it's gonna be insane. I can't wait to see what happens. Because this is taxing on my emotions. So, um, and also very exciting. It's exciting when we finish a series because it is the payoff to the entire series that we just read and enjoyed. But next week I'll also be letting y'all know what we're going to be starting next. Very special one for some reasons. So, yeah, let me know what you thought of this book. Any predictions you have. And until next time, read Sons of Destiny, and we'll see what happens with Darius, what happens with Steve, Darren, Lord of Shadows, everything, really. We'll see how it ends.